Hey everyone, we'll be making the chocolate cherry mousse cake. This cake has three components: the moist chocolate cake, chocolate mousse, and the cherry pie filling. Let's begin by making our moist chocolate cake base. For this, you will need the following: 1 cup of evaporated milk mixed with 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Now let's prepare our dry ingredients. For this, you will need the following: 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour sifted, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of fine salt, 2 cups of granulated white sugar, and 3/4 cup of Dutch processed cocoa powder. For this recipe, I like using Dutch processed cocoa powder as it gives a well-balanced chocolate flavor and a very nice color. In the absence of Dutch processed cocoa powder, you can also use unsweetened cocoa powder. However, I just find this too acidic for this recipe. Mix all the dry ingredients together in a bowl until well combined. Once combined, make a well at the center of the bowl, and we will gradually add the wet ingredients. For the wet ingredients, we need the following: 3 pieces of whole eggs, half a cup of corn oil, and the prepared milk mixture. Mix in the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. You can either use a wooden spoon or a wire whisk for this. Mix until you create a smooth batter. Add in 1 cup of hot coffee. Using hot coffee for this recipe enhances the chocolate flavor and it gives the cake a darker color. The batter is almost ready. Now we will split this mixture into 2. For this recipe, we will be using a 9-inch round pan lined with parchment paper. We will bake this on a preheated oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 40 minutes. Now here's our cake layer. We will set this aside to cool completely. Now let's prepare the chocolate mousse. For this you will need 1/4 cup of cold water and 1 tablespoon of gelatin. We set the gelatin in cold water. This technique is called blooming. Blooming gelatin makes it easier for us to melt the gelatin later on before we add it to our chocolate mousse mixture. Set the unflavored gelatin in cold water for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, we will be melting the gelatin using indirect heat. For this, we are using simmering water. You can also do this technique using microwave oven. Melt the gelatin until the mixture becomes clear. Once clear, set this aside. The next step is to prepare a very clean bowl. Please make sure that you do not have any traces of water on the bowl that you will be using to melt your chocolate. For this, you will need 120 grams of dark chocolate. Melt the chocolate over simmering water. Once completely melted, set this aside. Next is we'll be making our meringue. So for this you will need the following: 2/3 cup of granulated white sugar and 4 egg whites. Meringues are very simple, yet they can be very tricky. Make sure that the egg whites does not have any traces of yolks, and your mixing bowl and the wire whisk should not have any traces of oil. Mix the egg whites and sugar until they are warm to touch. Warming up the egg whites and melting in the sugar into the egg whites will make a more stable meringue. The egg whites should be warm to touch. Once warm, we take this into our mixer and beat the egg whites with sugar until medium stiff. There are many ways on how you can make meringue. For this recipe, we are using the Swiss method. Our meringue is now ready, and now let's prepare our whipping cream. In a clean bowl, we'll pour in 1.5 cups of heavy cream. We'll whip the cream until soft peaks are formed. For my mousses, I actually like just whipping the cream until soft peaks. This will prevent me from over whipping my cream later on when I add the other ingredients. And now our cream is ready. Now let's assemble our mousse. So first is combine the melted gelatin and melted chocolate. Mix this until smooth. Next is we add the chocolate gelatin mixture into the whipped egg whites. Mix the chocolate and gelatin mixture into the egg whites using a wire whisk. Lastly, we fold the chocolate mixture into the whipped cream. And now our mousse is ready. Let's start the assembly process of our chocolate cherry mousse cake. For this you will need a 9-inch cake ring fitted with a 9-inch cake board. First is to lay about ½ inch thick of the moist chocolate cake. Then we spread some of the cherry pie filling. There can be an optional step for this. You can also brush the cake layers with brandy syrup. However, the chocolate cake recipe that I used for this is already moist, so I thought that would not be necessary. Make sure to evenly spread the cherry pie filling into the cake layer. Next is add the chocolate mousse layer. Repeat this process until you finish 2 layers of cake, mousse, and the cherry pie filling. This set in the refrigerator for at least 8 hours. In the meantime, I will be showing you how to make simple chocolate decorations. For this cake, I will be using chocolate bark shards. To make the shards, you will need to put in some melted chocolate into strips of parchment paper. Use an angled spatula to spread the melted chocolate into the parchment paper. Allow this to partially set. Once partially set, take one end of the parchment paper and roll this loosely. Refrigerate this for about 10 to 15 minutes. After 10 to 15 minutes, peel off the parchment paper from the chocolate. Now you have the chocolate shards, which will be used on top of our chocolate cherry mousse cake. For the final step in making our chocolate cherry mousse cake, you will need half a cup of heavy cream and whisk this until thick. Then we add 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. Continue whipping the cream until stiff. And for the final process, take out our chilled chocolate cherry mousse cake. Loosen the sides using an angled spatula. And top with a freshly whipped cream. Using an angled spatula, spread the whipped cream on top of our chocolate cherry mousse cake. And now let's release our cake from the cake ring. Place cake on a cake board, and now let's decorate the top with the chocolate decorations. Dust top with some powdered sugar and decorate this with either fresh cherries or maraschino cherries. So there you have it, our chocolate cherry mousse cake. Please do not forget to hit like and subscribe for more recipes only here on our YouTube channel, Sweet Project at Home.